Hi, this is Steve Siebold. We're here at the Bone Allen Mansion outside of Atlanta, and I'm the author of the brand new book, just out for a few days, The Truth About World Financial Group, Unauthorized. And I'm just delighted today. We've been trying to get this gentleman down here to the mansion for months now. He's very busy. He's from San Jose, California. One of the top people in World Financial Group, especially in the last 10 years or so, just come on like wildfire. One of my very good friends in the company, Mr. Eric Olson. Eric, thanks for coming down, man.
Yeah, it's great
Glad
to
we
be
could
here.
get you. Yeah, finally.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
Great, great. Well, let's just start out, if you would, just by telling the group, you know, how did you get started with WFG? I know you're a football player, but can you give us a story?
Yeah, well, back 15 years ago now, back in 2003, I was the captain of San Jose State football team, and got introduced to the company by a lady friend of mine, and she brought me in, introduced me to the business, and the guy that gave the presentation talked about how he made over $40,000 the previous month, and
wow.
This guy wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I'm real competitive because I played sports my whole life, and I was just thinking, wow, if this guy
Not
can
you
do
competitive.
it.
No.
Yeah, definitely,
No,
definitely. No, I just thought if he can do it, I can do it. You know? So I started, and I was 21 years old, and started part-time in the business. Mm-hmm.
So what was it was it just the competition, or what really attracted you to the opportunity?
Well, they said things like unlimited income. They said things like residual income. They said something, you know, of the verge of financial services is the #1 highest paid industry in the world. You know, so if you can help people and make big money at the same time, I mean, why not, right? That attracted me.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And so you were introduced by a friend. It was actually someone you were dating, if I remember correctly, from your history, right?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
But then you were excited, and then she didn't get excited.
She decided not to do the business. She said, "You go ahead and do it," and I ran with it, and she didn't.
And she could have brought you in.
Yeah.
That was expensive.
I could have, yeah. She lost out on millions of dollars.
Yeah, right. Yep. Does she know that?
I'm not sure. I haven't talked to her, but I'm sure, you know, word travels fast. So
I'm surprised you haven't made that phone call.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
Merry Christmas. This is Eric. Remember me?
Yeah, I'm sure she knows. I'm sure she knows.
How long? Now, I know that you came out of the gate pretty quickly, but how long did it take for you to become really successful at this?
You know, my first 14 months, you know, weren't very good because I was doing so many different things. I was juggling 10 different things at once, coaching sports and, you know, having my job at the airport and coaching my little brothers in sports and playing football myself and doing so many different things. So I wasn't even part-time. I was more spare time in this business. And so the first 14 months, I wasn't even licensed. I didn't do much at all. But I did learn a lot in the business. And then I went to a big event. And, you know, from there, I decided to go full-time. And I literally quit everything in my whole life, and I went full-time in this business and made $250,000 my first year full-time when I was 22 years old.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, you came to a meeting in Atlanta, right, when Ed Milet was speaking?
Correct.
And you heard, what was it that he said that grabbed you? And because you went back and quit everything, as you said, right?
Yeah, Ed Milet said a couple powerful things. He said, if you want big results, you got to make big decisions. And he said, if you want to do something big, you can't play small. And he said, you can't have $1 million dream with a minimum wage work ethic. And he also said, you could be a jack of all trades or you could be a master of one. And I felt like I was doing a lot of different things, and I was pretty good at all of them, but I wasn't great at any of them. So I just wanted to, you know, do something big. And that just sold me the dream, big time.
Were you always interested in finance?
I wasn't. I was always interested in becoming wealthy. I was always interested in doing something big. I thought I was going to be professional sports. But you know, I got injured a couple times, and someone told me, what if you can make professional sports kind of money without all the injuries? I said, man, that sounds great to me. So
wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when you were in college, what were you? So it was going to be professional football. Mm-hmm. And did you have anything else that because you said you wanted to be wealthy, was there anything else you were thinking of besides sports, or?
You know, it would be a sportscaster or coach of sports or things like that, something in sports, but, you know, I just wanted to be wealthy. I didn't know where or how or what, but when this business dropped in my lap, I said, man, this is it. And I treated this like my sport. I competed, there's a scoreboard, you know, and I treated this business as my sport. So like more of a business athlete.
Why do you think you wanted to become wealthy? Because I've interviewed, as you know, so many people for so many years, and self-made millionaires like yourself, and most of them have that drive that they wanted to be wealthy. Where did yours come from?
That's a good question. I come from a middle-class family, great family, but I was the oldest in the family, so I grew up pretty fast because I was kind of like a father figure to my little brothers and things like that. And so I saw my parents struggle with their finances, threatening divorce hundreds of thousands of times growing up, and it was all because of money. And I said, man, I never wanted that. I wanted to be able to be secure financially and be able to have freedom of time. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ways, biggest reasons I wanted to become wealthy is because of seeing my parents fight so much about money in the household. I said I never wanted that challenge.
So you thought that being wealthy would take a lot of that away?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things that you and I have talked about in the past, and I'd like to get more in depth about this, is that I was an athlete, you were an athlete, and I've interviewed, of course, and coached a lot of athletes. You spent your life with athletes as well, your young life like I did. As you know, most athletes, whether they're great college athletes like you and I were, or they're pro athletes or whatnot, they're for some reason they're not able to transfer that drive that we had to have to get to wherever we were into business. And I've had this conversation. I've never understood it. What do you think? Why do you think you were able to do it? What was it how were you able to transfer that drive you had for football to WFG?
You know what? I think in sports, they all had a coach. In this business, when you start off, you're kind of your own coach at first, and that's why it's so important to find a mentor, find a leader, find someone who can coach you through the process. Because you do have to have the drive and the discipline and things like that, but if you can find a coach that'll help you go through the rankings, I think that'll help a lot. So maybe just the fact that you have to be more of a self-starter, and they're not used to that, I think that's probably one part of the reason.
I just haven't understood it because, we had to practice so much. I mean, I don't think most people really realize what a Division I athlete and then a pro athlete really goes through as far as practice. I mean, it's physically, it's like beating a dog up. I mean, it's incredible, right? I just never understood why they couldn't take all that fire that we had to have to do it and then put it, because it seemed very natural for people like you and I, but most people don't really get that,
I don't know. It might be their associations. A lot of times we grew up with friends from our high schools and our neighborhoods, and then we go to sports and we work so hard, and then sometimes they go back to their old friends and their old neighborhoods, and none of them are doing anything big. And so I think associations has a lot to do with it as well.
How about mental toughness? What role, as you know, I've written a lot about mental toughness. What role does mental toughness, has it played in your success?
In this business, I've made about $30 million so far, and people ask me what's the number one characteristic of your success, and I say number one is mental toughness. I love your book, the 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class. It's my favorite book, actually, and I refer that to all my agency of people, and I think that's a huge deal, because there's going to be ups and downs. My football coach used to tell me, never get too high in the highs, never get too low on the lows, because reality is somewhere in the middle. And mental toughness is a huge, huge part of my success.
Specifically, one of the things you told me when I was interviewing for the new book was that when you first got in the business, you were excited about talking to your family and friends about, because you said you were really on fire about it, and then you had something happen that I wrote about in the book, and I wanted to ask you about that with an uncle that sort of. Can you talk about that? Because that took mental toughness to overcome, right? Would you be willing to share that?
Yeah, that's funny. Right when I started, I got all excited and wanted to tell everybody about it, like you mentioned. And one of my uncles did some research and got some negative stuff on the internet from somebody, and he literally sent an email to all my family and all the people that I knew and said, hey, whatever Eric's doing, don't do it. It's a scam. And because he was really upset. He helped me get my Division I football scholarship, and he really thought that I was going to play pro because that was where I was headed, and he was really upset. I decided not to go play professional football and do this instead, so he was out to get me. He was out to ruin my career, but I didn't let it stop me, luckily. But it was definitely a dagger in the road, but I didn't let it stop me. So
because that basically wiped out your whole warm market, right?
Correct.
So walk us through, if you would, for people watching this that maybe they didn't have a Division I scholarship and they've been put through the kind of tests that athletes get put through. Walk us through the psychology of overcoming that. All of a sudden, you have no warm market. You're basically a kid. I mean, you're not, you're 20 years old or 19 or whatever it was, right? And how did you get through that? What did you say to yourself that pushed you forward to become what you are now?
It's a lot of self-talk. Self-talk is huge. I'll just say things like, well, everything happens for a reason. Well, a setback's a good time for a comeback. Well, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Well, I know there's some kind of a lesson I need to learn from this. With every adversity, there's a blessing. So I'll just talk myself into it instead of talk myself out of it. And I think the way to get strength is through struggle. And I've had a lot of struggles, and that made me pretty strong.
So where did you go once your warm market was gone? Where did you go next, or first?
I had to learn how to prospect. Learn how to talk to people. I would do some icebreakers and, hey, are you married to your job, or are you keeping your business options open? Or, hey, have you ever thought about doing something bigger and better? Things like that. And I would go after athletes to begin with. Even right now in my organization, I have over 60 former athletes that are now senior marketing directors with our firm.
Wow.
And so I'd go after athletes and say things like, hey, where'd you play ball at? And that could be football, basketball, baseball, tennis ball, ping pong ball. That could be whatever ball.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, I played high school ball, or I played college ball, or I played professional ball. And I go, man, how would you like to have a professional sports kind of money without the injuries? And then I brought them in and trained them and helped them. So that was my main focus, was prospecting athletes when I started.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine that, and I don't mean to be funny about this at all, but I can imagine that it must have been somewhat of a disadvantage almost to be as large of a guy as you are when you're prospecting someone who's like, yikes, yes, sir, I'll do it, right? I mean, did that make it harder for you? Because you are obviously an imposing figure just by size alone. Did that make it harder to prospect cold people?
I thought it made it easier.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, because they have to look up to me, just by chance, right off the bat. And most, I don't know if you know this, but most CEOs in corporate America are 6'2" and taller, and so me being almost 6'6", Tony Robbins is 6'7", 6'8", things like that. So they automatically look up to you. Right. And and I'm a teddy bear on the inside, so I'm nice, and I think people can trust me pretty easily, and I just have the best interest in mind. So I think they're fine.
That kind of carries over.
Yeah.
I thought just being so physically imposing, it could almost be intimidating for people. I mean, you could influence them, but will they do the work, at the end of the day, right? Right.
Well, it's turned out okay so far.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Well, what would you, obviously you've had a tremendous amount of success. You're, such a fast-growing leader. If you're not the fastest, are you the fastest-growing leader? Certainly one of them in the company, right? What would you say is the downside? You know as well as I do, we've been in business both a long time. What's the downside of WFG if there's a downside?
The downside is there really is work involved. Some people come in and they hear this big dream and they think they're going to be successful overnight. And, success is never a straight line. There's always a lot of curves and ups and downs. And so I think the downside is however long you think it might take to be successful, it's probably going to be a little bit longer than that. But the good news is, however awesome you think success is, it's going to be better than that as well. So I just think if people are willing to work hard, be coachable, do what it takes, then they'll be successful. But it'll probably take a little bit longer than they might hope or might think.
Do you think most people are willing to work hard enough to become financially independent, the average person?
I have an 18-month rule. If they can do this business for 18 months, then I know if they're for real or not. But most people, they don't survive the first 18 months.
Swan Wynn told me the exact same thing. He goes, I don't even count them until they're 18 months in. They're not, as you said, not real, something to that effect. Yeah, yeah, pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of the criticisms that people levy, online mostly, as you know, and I've been studying for the book for 6 months. People say, well, for example, they'll say, well, it's a scam. They love to say it's a scam. Mm-hmm. What do you say to people when they actually come to you and say, it's a scam? What do you say?
I just answer a question with a question. I say, really, is it a scam? How do you know that? And they'll say, oh, well, I did my research. I go, well, are you basing your research on opinion or on fact? And they go, oh, well, my brother-in-law told me. I go, oh, really? Was your brother-in-law licensed with us? Oh, no, he wasn't. He was doing it for 3 days. right? I go, well, he never even did the business, right?
Yeah.
He never even did the business. He just came for 3 days and left. You know, so a lot of people, they're saying it's a scam. They never really gave it a try. Because the people that have given this a try, you know, they know it's not a scam. I mean, obviously, we're a very highly regulated industry, highly regulated company, so we're definitely not a scam.
How about the criticism? People say, well, it's just it's MLM, it's sort of a network marketing type of compensation structure. It's a pyramid scheme. What do you say to those people?
I say, well, how does your job work? Do you have a manager? Do you have a supervisor? Do you have a general manager? Do you have the owner? Do you have their own? And by the way, are they trying to pull you up? Not at all, right? So when are you going to have their job? You can't. Right here, yeah, you might have someone above you, but that person's mentoring you and training you and leading you and helping you and coaching you to bring you up to where they're at. That's a big difference. So you have a pyramid at your job, right? And you'll never get to the top of that. And if you call us a pyramid, the good news is you can get to the top, bottom line, and we'll help you get there. So
that's one of the things that, you know, Chris Felton from Denver, and Chris said to us during our interview with him, he said he went to Trevor Jensen, who was the person who introduced him to WFG, and he said, how do I become you?
Yeah.
You know, he was with Arthur Anderson, and he said, and Arthur, you know, they didn't want them to become, you know, them because it's taking their job.
Right.
So in terms of the pyramid, it makes sense. What do you think? What do you say to people who say, "Well, it's kind of cultish"? You know, a guy like Eric Olson gets on stage, and there's 25,000 people in the audience, and they're cheering, and they're, you know, it's the whoosh thing. And what do you say to those people that they criticize it for that?
You know, when I first started, I thought the whoosh thing was a little weird too. You know, I definitely could relate to that. However, energy is everything, you know, and our excitement, enthusiasm, and energy and good spirit, I think it's contagious. You know, at first it might be a little weird, but then you like it and, you know, you get hooked with it. You know, so I just think it's better to have good energy than bad energy. And of course, at first it's a little weird, but eventually it grows on you and you like it. You do like it, so.
And we did it in sports, right? We always did it in the team sports.
That's
I mean,
true.
we always did that stuff. Well, then we do it in business, and it's weird.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to pump yourself up. You got to get yourself excited. You got to put yourself in that zone somehow. And it's better. I'd rather have that than just be the boring meetings, you know, that some people have to go through.
Yeah. Right. No kidding. Yeah. In terms of leadership, again, you come. I know you were the captain at one point. You were captain of the football team, and you know. I know I worked with football players. I wasn't a football player, but I was a tennis player. But I worked with football players, and it's a pretty tough. The coaches are pretty tough, as you know. It's kind of a locker room, you know, do it or die kind of thing. One of the things I've always wanted to ask you about was, because I've seen you with your teams. Your team, obviously, your team is huge, but I've seen you in front of, you know, thousands of your people. And you don't come off to me like, I see because I've coached football players, I see the football player in you besides the size. I hear it in what you say because I worked with so many of the pros. But you're able to soften up your leadership. And I always want to ask you about, how do you do that? How do you go from, if you're leading a football team like you did at San Jose State as a captain, how do you go from now that to being on stage in front of people that have never had that experience? They've never had someone raise their voice to them in their life. And here's this big, giant guy that's their leader now. And you come across as tough to me, but you don't come across as like a locker room. How did you make that transition?
Well, part of it is having great mentors. I definitely have some great mentors and leaders in this company that taught me. But, you know, I want to be relatable to everybody. So I want to be relatable to the older people, the younger people, the different nationalities, different genders. So purposefully, when I speak, I'll try to make them laugh. I'll try to make them cry. I'll try to make them get fired up and get a little intense. And then I'll try to hit them in a soft spot as well to get them emotional. So I'll try to do purposefully different ways to kind of stir up the emotions a little bit, you know, and that's, you know, I've been taught that by great speakers and, you know, great leaders. So that's kind of what I purposefully try to do. And in an audience, I might be a little bit more intense, and then one-on-one I'll be more personable and more nice, because I'll just never call out their name in an audience, and that always works because they always think I'm talking to them. And yeah, so just by practice makes perfect. I mean, that's what I would say. I'm definitely not perfect yet, but I'm striving towards excellence. You know. Do you
ever find yourself getting worked up in front of the team when you know they're not doing what you think they should do? Because, well, obviously we're all working on that. did you ever get to the point where you feel like it's coming out and then you have to dial it back?
You know, I call it deposits and withdrawals.
Okay.
So I purposefully once a month get fired up and do a locker room speech. Purposefully once a month.
Just to get it out of your
Just
system.
to get it out. Yep, once a month. But I'll make 9 deposits. So if I make 9 deposits, I can take 1 withdrawal. And that 1 withdrawal is, you know, do I believe in you too much, or are you just not performing to what you should be? You know, and things like that. You know, so as long as I've made the deposits, I can take the withdrawal. And I think the withdrawal is taken the right way because I have made so many deposits. You know, it's like with much given, much is expected.
I see.
You know,
Okay.
and the best coaches I ever had were the ones that were hard on me.
Right.
And if the coaches are hard on you, that means they believe in you. And
Right.
I think if you believe in someone, it's okay to be hard on them. You know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So as long as your people know that you care about them, I think it's okay to be a little bit hard on them sometimes, at least once a month.
Yeah, once a month. Okay, now I know your formula.
Yeah,
Okay, because as you know, in the locker room, I mean, I remember I was just a psychological coach for teams like the Miami Dolphins for a while, that kind of thing. And I would literally, with some of the guys, because they respond to it, as you know. I mean, these guys are way bigger than me, not bigger than you, but bigger than me. And I'm grabbing their face mask and I'm going at them, and they respond to it. Yeah, but you do that with the average person, which I've done in some meetings when I didn't know any better. Right. And you know, they look like you look like the devil.
Right.
And it's impressive that you've been able to sort of formalize that, so to speak, and make it work for the average person.
Right. Well, it's a lot of trial and error. You know, I blew out a lot of people at the beginning.
I'll bet you did, yeah.
And, you know, and then I kind of see what works and what doesn't work. And obviously I want to keep the people. So I think just a little bit of each, you know, kind of helps. So you're not all one way, but you kind of stir it up a little bit and keeps people on their toes.
Sure. I remember when I was interviewing, I can't remember if it was Juan Jaime or it was Paul Hart. You'll know, but he said he failed the license test a few times.
Yeah, that was Juan Jaime.
It was Juan, okay. And he was working as a plumber with his dad, I think. If that's, he got in the book.
Yep.
And he said, I said, what happened? He says, well, I went to Eric. And he said, you know, when are you going to get serious about being licensed? And I wondered on the phone, is that really what Eric said? Because what I'm thinking is you knocked him over the head. But he said, no, that's what Eric said. And then then I said, well, is that what got you? He goes, well, no. Then he said, do you know how much money you're losing?
Yeah.
And then you showed him the numbers. He had no idea what the numbers were.
And now he's making almost $1 million a year. What a great story.
Amazing, yeah.
Incredible.
And a great guy.
Yeah.
Nicest guy in the world,
Awesome.
too. His wife's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, great people, right?
Awesome. And so he had a little setback at the beginning, but guess what? He never quit. And sure enough, he's going to be reaping the benefits for the rest of his life. And that's why I love doing what I do, to see those rags to riches stories and zeros to heroes and employee to entrepreneur. And I mean, it's just awesome to see. It's almost addicting to see people winning and being successful, and to know you had a little part of it. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty incredible.
Do you think you've been able to pass on the mental toughness that you and that I guess mental toughness is a good enough way to say it in general, but have you been able to pass that on to your leaders? Do you think that's something you've been able to instill in them somehow?
You know, I talk about it so much. Every time I speak, I talk about mental toughness, you know, how important it is. And I think if you really studied all the great ones, all the successful ones, you got to have some kind of a mental toughness. If not, you know, you're gonna get stomped on in the business world. So you're going to have it. And I do talk about it a lot. And I think it is transferable to a key, you know, but it's obviously not 100%. But if you talk about it all the time and you talk about how important it is, I think you create awareness behind it, and people say, man, well, obviously I have to be mentally tough in order for this to happen. Because some people, when adversity strikes, when problems happen, they blame the company, but it's not the company, it's just called life. So in general, in life, if you want to be successful, you got to be mentally tough, you know, and I talk about that all the time, you know, so.
So going back to when you first started, you're working at the airport. It was the toll
booth
at the toll booth at the airport, right? Making a fortune, of course, right?
Yeah.
Playing football, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So that Eric, I'm imagining that Eric Olson being, you know, super young. You're still young, but you were really young then. And mentally tough, coming right. You're still in football. You are in it, man. But now you're making a boatload of money. You're very famous within the WFG structure. Very well known and everything. You're living big. How are you? Do you still have to be mentally tough, being the Eric Olson of 2018, like you did back in the early days, or don't you have to be as tough as you used to be?
That's a great question. I have to be a lot more mentally tough now because there's a lot more on my plate. being married, having kids, having church responsibilities, being a business leader, having an agency of 10,000 people, and just a lot of responsibilities. And my schedule's always crazy. So you have to be more mentally tough now than you were before. But I believe if you increase your capacity, you'll increase your income. So anytime something happens where I'm feeling down or frustrated or upset, I go, well, God's given me this because I'm the only person that can handle it. And I'll say things like that to myself, and that'll just help me be more mentally tough. So I'll have bad hours, but I'll never have bad days, and things like that. So I'll have my routine. If anything, is bothering me, I'll do one of my favorite things I love to do, boom, and then I'll just snap out of it. So you have to be 10 times more mentally tough now than even when I was back then. So. Mm-hmm.
Is part of it do you feel a weight, so to speak, of having all these thousands of people that look up, and your people, I've interviewed a lot of your people, and of course spoken to a lot of your people as well, but for the book, interviewing your people are fiercely loyal. That's the word that came to me after the interviews, fiercely loyal to you. Almost like, really just fiercely loyal. I guess that's what I would say. Do you feel the weight, not so much of your top people who are making a lot of money, they're good now, right? They're leaders on their own. But do you feel the weight of the average person that just gets in 2 weeks ago and then all of a sudden they see this larger-than-life character, Eric Olson, and he's here and he's there and he's on stage in Las Vegas? Do you feel the weight of you can't slow down or you can't let up because you still have obligations to that brand new person that's just getting started?
Definitely. Our team is Pinnacle Leadership Development. Our focus is to build and develop people, build and develop leaders. That's what we do. And I definitely take responsibility a little bit of their success. I sell a big dream, so I want to deliver on that dream for my people. So yeah, we call ourselves Pinnacle Family. We're a brotherhood, we're a sisterhood, and we want you to win, and we'll do everything we can. I tell people, even if I got to drag you across the finish line, kicking and screaming, right? I'm gonna do it, and that's why I love what I do, and that's why I'm still doing what I do, because I want to bring a lot of people to the top with me. So absolutely, I do feel for them, especially if they're not doing the business anymore. Man, they gave up on their dreams, and I could have helped them be successful. So I definitely have some weight, carried around where I want to help them be successful for sure.